you should be a combo specialist. If you look at McDonald's, they have got a combo meal. Burger, fries, and Coke. Burger is your core specialization. Fries is your secondary specialization. And then Coke is your interest. So for me, I did engineering as my bachelor degree and went to finance. So engineering was my core, was my burger. Finance was my fries, and computer programming was my Coke because I enjoy programming.
All right, Eric, let's kick off.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Kickoff Sessions. One of the best guests I could possibly find, I think, in Singapore. The most experienced. You've been through everything, man, and I'm excited to get into it today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here, this studio.
Yeah, it's a nice little setup, and I want to do something right, because when I meet you, I want to go through it properly, set it up, and just go through everything, and have something nice.
Yeah,
I'm excited, man.
I think you make your guests feel welcome and also respected.
Well, that's the plan. That's the plan. So, man, I want to get into, of course, your career. We're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about everything. But one thing that I love about you the most is that you bring things back to kind of a lot of your childhood and how you were brought up, and even their experiences when Singapore became Singapore. So maybe can you talk me through kind of some of the earlier years of when you were growing up through school, kind of how that kind of was like?
Yeah, my father sold prawn noodle in hawker center in Singapore. You must have tried many good food down here. So I was helping him since elementary school. In Singapore, we call it primary school.
Same in Ireland.
So, primary 6 all the way to university. So, when I was studying engineering in NUS, I was also helping him during school holiday and also during weekends. So I was serving the customers, I was cooking, washing the dishes as well. Yeah, so that is how I spent bulk of my childhood other than going to school.
Crazy. Did you take a lot from your father in particular? Like, was he a bit of an inspiration to you?
Not during the time because, I hate waking up like 7 a.m. have to be at the store by 7:30.
Yeah.
Cutting chili and then without knowingly rubbing your eyes.
Yeah.
And prawns, normally when we peel prawns, when they are cold, so there is a very strong fishy smell, and then it's very difficult to get it away. So whole day, right? I'll be smelling of prawns and all this seafood smell. And so I didn't think much of him until much later in life. Yeah, when I was maybe working like halfway through banking, and he passed away 5 years ago. And now I recall why am I doing what I'm doing, and a lot of time I can trace back to the lesson I learned from him at the store. Was tough 10 years helping him because kids are enjoying Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. I can't because the next day I need to be down at the store. So I cannot come home like, past midnight. Otherwise I won't have the energy to help him. Yeah.
And I suppose you learned so much about how to apply like principles of your life, and even finding your why and discovering what you wanted to do because you were working so hard on those particular areas. I suppose your engineering was in check. You were very focused and diligent.
Yeah, and my father rests 1 day a year. First day of Chinese New
It's
Year.
the Asian mentality.
Yeah. Second day of Chinese New Year, we are down at the store. I was down at the store. Most shops are closed. So it's super crowded by 8 a.m. The whole place. And in order to kind of satisfy the crowd, we try to reduce the choices. So in Singapore, at the noodle store, we serve 3 types of noodles. You have the yellow noodle, you have the vermicelli, the white rice noodle, and you got the flat white rice noodle. So you can have one of those 3, or you can mix 2 of those 3, and you can even order 3 in one bowl. And then we have 3 sizes. So 7 combination of noodles plus 3 sizes, 21 combination. Second day of Chinese New Year by 8 a.m., we only serve yellow noodle and vermicelli. Large. Take it or leave it.
And again, you're not trading your time for money because you're just going to be focused on those bigger deals.
Yeah. So this is how you can clear the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I took that lesson when I was a bartender. So I was a bartender in one of the big nightclubs down here along Orchard Road. So it was a school holiday job. I went there and said, can I be a bartender? He said, yeah, memorize this recipe. So I went there on a Monday, was okay. So I learned how to mix a few drinks like the Singapore Sling, Black Russian, and wine, beer, what glass to use, what garnish. You know, some you have to use lemon, some you have to use lime. Come Wednesday night is ladies' night. Ladies come in for free. And it attracts the guys.
And the guys are probably paying like $30 a get or more. In Singapore.
During my time, it's like 20 Singapore dollars. You get like 2 drinks coupon in blue.
And the girls go in for free.
Yeah.
Of course.
And there was a band playing. So this band was playing like rock music, from Guns N' Roses. When they took a break, the customers all flocked to my island bar. And I was very slow. So by the time the band came back, half the customers left without a drink. So I went home, I memorized the recipe, what glass, the concoction. Thursday I came, still slow. Friday, Saturday, when the band took a break, the customers come all pushing this coupon right in front of me. Beer, wine, grasshopper, and rainbow. Rainbow is a cocktail with 7 layers of alcohol and syrup. You cannot mix. You have to do it properly. You can't mix them, otherwise the layers get jumbled up. I stop, I look at them, I say, I'm going to make bourbon coke now. Who wants bourbon coke? Half the people, including that guy who ordered the rainbow, changed to bourbon coke. So I took out a dozen of glass, put ice, put bourbon, and used the soda gun. There's a button C on it. There's Coke. Spray on it and clear the crowd. Then I say, who wants gin tonic? Done. That's the next popular drink. So I told this story to the DBS Bank hiring manager, what I did during school holiday. She gave me a job. That's how I started my banking career.
Why do you think that was? Was it because you removed the complexity out of a process? Like you looked at something and said, this isn't the most efficient way to do it, or it isn't the most cost effective or revenue generating?
Number one is I need to clear the crowd. Right? That's my job as a bartender. And I don't want my customers to be disappointed. But what do they want? I think most important is get a drink within 2 minutes and go back to your girlfriend, and then you can go back to the band. Not really wanting that rainbow or that Singapore Sling. That is second in priority. But there is no such drink on the menu. In the menu, there is nothing to say, drink to be served within 2 minutes. There's no such drink. So, number one is understanding the customers, and also I'm in a position to do that. Because they know if they don't order the bourbon coke, they could be waiting for another 15 minutes.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of people don't know what they want until it's kind of it's shown in front of them. Is that you provided that opportunity, and now they had this selection of what to do,
A lot of people do not know what they want, and also sometimes it's not necessarily having more choices makes people happy, right? And sometimes when we give you more choices, you got a headache. And if you look at Apple, they're selling iPhone, right? Yeah. iPhone Max for 2,000 Singapore dollars, maybe 1,000 plus US. They give you only 4 choices of color. They could have given you 10 colors for that price. But it means for them, inventory is going to be a problem. 10 colors, you got a Max, you got a Pro, and you got different storage space. And for the customers going into the shop, you're trying 10 colors, you don't know what to choose. So sometimes reducing the choice helps the customer.
I see that as well in a career choice perspective for young people, because I think we're very fortunate position we're in. When you did engineering, which was great, I did information systems, kind of like a variation of business and tech. People have a lot of opportunity, and then they kind of get a bit more overwhelmed with the different choices that they can make. You can go into this career, you can go into fintech, you can go into startups, you can go into traditional banking, retail banking, investment banking, risk, compliance. There's a whole array. So when you see it on the product side and you see it on the career side, we find a situation whereby a lot of people are feeling like overwhelmed. But when you simplify it and get into that kind of the value position where people get the most value from.
Yeah, I think you can always try different thing and then try to link them up. Yeah, the key is connecting the different experience that you have.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not whether you've gone into the right job, right company or not, but it's how to take that experience and bring it together. For example, me helping my father, 10 years, not much of a life outside school for me. That experience was very hard during that time, but now it allows me to come up with my principle of living, and also allows me to write a book, because what I'm doing now has a story to it.
Of course.
I mean, if I grew up in a privileged family, my parents sent me to Ivy League or Oxbridge, and I get into investment banking, there's not much of a story, because you expected me to do that, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So in life, it's like that.
And that's what was so interesting, because I asked you about, what did you learn from your father at a young age? Because when we're in the trenches, we don't necessarily reflect that much. But from you, taking that experience with the bartender job, going to DBS, and then what you talk about now next about going to the UK to do your master's, like for a lot of people, especially if you came from a privileged background, you stick with the natural progression. And of course, you're going to end up in Goldman Sachs, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're going to be on the trading desk.
Yes.
You're going to be out at the weekend, and you're not going to you're not going to value the money, because I can't imagine that where you are now positioned, you've really worked hard for it, and through all the adversity with the bartender job, with leaving DBS, with going to do your masters, that adds to it, and adds to your value. And I think that's why we see a lot of the hungriest people are people like yourself.
Yeah. So regardless of your background, even you come from a rich family, there are things you can do. So just take advantage of the position that you are in at that point in time. So because I helped my father, so a lot of my lesson that I taught in school, because I also teach in universities, I derive from food. My analogy, this is what I teach my students as well as my follower. When they ask me, should you be a generalist or should you be a specialist? I told them, if you are a generalist, you cannot command a premium because you can be easily replaced. If you are a specialist, you can lose your job when your industry gets disrupted. Because of technology, because of the pandemic, it is very easy that your company will be subject to reorg. So I say you should be a combo specialist. If you look at McDonald's, they have got a combo meal. Burger, fries, and Coke. Burger is your core specialization. Fries is your secondary specialization. And then Coke is your interest. So for me, I did engineering as my bachelor degree and went to finance. So engineering was my core, was my burger. Finance was my fries, and computer programming was my Coke because I enjoy programming. And later on, I move, I combined finance and engineering to do financial engineering at Citi. And that became my burger.
Mm-hmm.
And then China became my my fries at one point, because I was very intrigued with the Chinese business culture and teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I combined all of that to do investment banking, covering Chinese customers.
That's so fascinating. And I want to ask you about China as well as time goes on. But how did you kind of develop those, like in hindsight now you're looking back and you're saying this is the combo special. But when you were looking at it, and you're looking at DBS and you went back to your master's and afterwards then, like, did you feel a bit lost during those times as well? Like, as in, was it difficult to identify that, okay, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So now I can be so clear because, it's on hindsight, right?
Yeah.
I looking back,
Morning quarter.
Yeah, I'm already like MD, UBS, Yeah.
Whereas you're me and you haven't a clue what to do.
Yeah. But then when I was in it, it's not so simple.
Of course.
It's not so clear. You will have doubt whether you are doing things correctly or not. But I hope my framework will help people think about what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And your combo changes over time, and you will promote your interest to your secondary specialization and eventually your core, and hopefully you can combine them. For example, now I'm an author. So writing is my burger. My fries is then career and life lesson. Mm-hmm. The life lesson that I picked up from the hawker store, the life lesson being an investment banker, mm-hmm. Traveling business class, staying in a 5-star hotel, which is very different. Eating at a hawker center and washing dishes. So I combine all of that, and plus social media. Mm-hmm. Because with social media, it's also a form of teaching. It's a channel for me to teach. So I not necessarily must teach in the classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I combine that, I have a book, which is the recommended text for my course, because it's on career. And I keep gathering all this lesson. Mm-hmm. And even like through this podcast, as you ask me question, then you get me to think. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a lesson out there for me to deliver to my students. So combo keep changing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How was it when you became like an investment banker? So you began in the hawker stand and now you're in 5-star hotels. Did you ever feel a sense of imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Not so much of imposter syndrome. I thought it's a kind of a waste of money. Because really? I could have shared that room with somebody,
Yeah.
Like now, because I stayed in a hotel so many times. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was staying in one hotel chain for 60 nights in a year, the same hotel chain. So they give me this VIP status. I would check in at 11 p.m. From fly from Hong Kong to Beijing, 11, and they upgraded me. They said that we're going to give you 2-bedroom plus, a little kitchen and a suite, But I'm only there for 8 hours because next day, 7 a.m., I already checked out go for breakfast.
Mm-hmm. I get you.
So I said it's such a waste, maybe you could have more people to share. And it's a bit surreal. I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome, but I feel that it's a bit surreal for me. Mm-hmm. However, the thing that hits me the most when I joined investment banking is I feel a little bit out of place because the people around me, usually they come from super good school and a privileged family. Then, of course, I didn't go to the top school, a local school here and also Lancaster University, which you may or may not have heard of. So when I went there and then I didn't tell people my hawker story. It's not something that I feel that is worth telling, nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to be proud of, it's just part of me. But I was feeling slightly out because my colleagues, they can get to anybody, any tycoon, any rich people, any CEO within 2 calls. if you are a good banker, you can reach anyone just by, through introduction. I don't have that type of network. And some of them, I think their family is probably rich enough to open a bank.
That's a ridiculous statement.
And, flying business class to me, is something fancy, right? To them, it's a downgrade because they normally fly first class on holiday. So work business class is a downgrade for them. And I thought, this is not good for me, and maybe I don't belong here. Maybe this is what you call the imposter syndrome. Then I've got a friend, Chuck, and when he was in Hong Kong, I was in Hong Kong, and he would introduce me to his network. When I first went there, he said, listen to Eric's story. Every time he introduced me, he says that. I say, what story? He said, tell people your hawker story. I said, there's nothing to tell. Mm-hmm. After 2-3 times, then I begin, maybe there is something about it. So I start telling, and I decided that I shouldn't try to be the most valuable player. Mm-hmm. I'll never be able to win. So I say that, why don't I become the most improved player? Because most improved, then I have a chance. Mm-hmm. We measure our success not by where we are, but by how far we have come.
I love that, because what's interesting there about the most improved part is I can imagine a lot of your mentors or senior managers would potentially think that some people who came from privileged backgrounds are too privileged, whereas for you, who's saying, look, I'm not the best, the brightest, the richest, but I'm working really, really hard and I'm going to put everything into this. And that's what I love about those mentalities. I felt the same as well working with Revolut. Guys are coming out of, because a big thing for fintech now is guys will come out of Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JPM, and they'll move into fintech. So I felt like that. I felt like I didn't have this pedigree from London School of Economics and whatnot. And then I just thought to myself that maybe it's the hard work, the drive that's more admirable or that's more respected with clients and whatnot, than maybe just automatically getting it,
Plus, we are dealing with entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs didn't go to top school. Mm-hmm. Right, so they can identify with me as well, and then I can speak Chinese dialect. If they want if they injured themselves, mm-hmm. I cannot introduce a specialist, the top orthopedic, but I can introduce to them my most trusted Chinese doctor, who can fix your injury within a few minutes.
Yeah, you have that edge, and that's what it's all about. Just kind of having your own kind of like. Kind of edge in your industry, in your career.
Yeah, find your niche. Yeah. I may not know as many Michelin star restaurant, but I do know where to get the best hawker food.
Exactly.
So some of these CEOs, they also want to try the local. So that's where I come in.
Yeah, Awesome. What fascinated you about China? Because I'm quite similar to you. I moved to Singapore, one of the best decisions I say I've ever made. And I'm always thinking Hong Kong and China are still areas that I want to explore. Mm. But for you, who was doing really well in the Singapore market, how come you wanted to make that move? What drove you there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm ethnically Chinese, and I have been fascinated with the Chinese culture. And in 1993, I really went there for my first time to see China. People still riding bicycles, wearing the blue and the gray clothes. And
does that symbolize? What's the blue and gray?
Blue and gray. Oh, that's everybody wears that in 1993.
Really?
Yeah. So if you take out the old photos of China, you see a lot of people wear those clothes. So that fascinated me, and I also like the language. I like the people. They are very knowledgeable. So in 2005, I asked Citi to transfer me to Citi, China. Yeah, to Shanghai. They agreed. So within a month, I relocated myself to Shanghai and set up the derivative structuring desk over there. And from there, I learned to deal with customers, Chinese customers, service state-owned enterprises, and also learn a lot from my Chinese colleague.
What was that like? What was setting up like that whole like department and everything there, like with the culture that's there?
It's a bit of a, I would say, a culture learning for me. So one of my customers say, "Hey, my leader." They don't say my boss. They say my leader. My leader loves the white wine. So I said, okay. He said, can you drink white wine? He's from Singapore. I said, yeah, I can drink a few glasses of white wine. So over dinner, so I ordered white wine, and the white wine came. Then it's not this white wine. It's not the white wine that we thought about, because in Chinese, it's literally white wine, and that's the baijiu. That is the very, very strong Chinese liqueur, a rice wine.
Rice wine.
Yeah. So because in Chinese is literally, when I do a literal translation, is white wine. Because we are speaking in Mandarin, and I didn't know they were referring to the Chinese white wine. And when we changed to the Chinese white wine, I got drunk like after 3 tiny glasses. And you cannot cheat, right? They pour into this small glass and then you have to finish it, right?
Oh, man.
And that was my introduction to the Chinese culture.
Yeah, it's obviously a big shift from Singapore and even from other areas in Asia, you know, just a lot more.
It is. During meetings, I've got clients who sit across the table, just like this, right? Yeah. And they would throw me a cigarette.
No way.
Just so we are having meeting, and then he just throw. Then after the meeting, I pull the working lever. I say, hey, your leader just now throw me the cigarette. Isn't it a bit rude? Shouldn't you like give nicely? And he said, no. My leader treat you like a friend. If he still use 2 hands to serve you and ask you if you want to smoke, you're not going to do the business, because he already like you enough. That's why he throw you the cigarette. That means the business is coming.
No
and true
way.
enough, the following week I close a big transaction.
That is insane. And I suppose there are also all nuances that you'd never know and you'd never be able to pick up,
Yeah. And
you can potentially lose a deal because of it.
Yeah. I mean, if you have reacted
exactly.
Inappropriately.
Did you smoke it?
Yeah. Sometimes I do, but it is okay to keep the cigarette if you don't smoke.
Oh yeah. Okay,
I'm just a social smoker. When I entertain clients, sometimes I do join them, but on my own, I don't.
Fair. That is crazy. But at least you got to experience it. It's that's kind of noble of you to kind of say, all right, I'm finished in Singapore. Let's go to China and let's see what that's like. Do you encourage younger people to travel with work?
Yeah, definitely. Try to work in a place that is quite different from where you are living. And then you can understand another culture. And also, you can understand yourself and your home country better. So I did interview one Japanese student for internship. And he was studying in Tokyo University, but went to America for exchange. So I said that, why do you want to go to America for exchange? To understand Japan better. I gave him the job.
No way.
Yeah.
It's because when you travel, you do just see a different perspective,
You see different perspective, because especially like in Singapore is such a small place, right?
Yeah.
So if you are here, you think that this is everything, but then when you go out, you realize that this place is very small, and then very few people pay attention to you.
That is true. There's a lot of good opportunities, I think, for younger people in Singapore, though. There's good, like, bigger companies, smaller companies. There seems to be good opportunity for people to get into different things, maybe.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunity in the finance sector, in the tech sector. A lot of big companies are here. They are attracted by the low tax.
Yeah.
I would say easy to get talent.
Yeah.
And also easy to get foreign talent. I mean, they can always hire anyone around the world.
That's one thing I love about Singapore is that it's kind of built like a company. Like even when I set up my company here, it was a painful process, but took 2 hours. So pretty good.
Wow.
Pretty good, whereas you compare that to, I always compare Singapore and Dubai because they're kind of like tax band, like kind of levels. And like Dubai, it's 10,000 USD to set it up, and it can take you months and months. So Singapore do bring in that good culture, I think, of expats and younger people. But I suppose if you do live here, you realize how small the place is and you do want to go explore different areas.
Yeah. And also Singapore is an aviation hub, so you can travel out quite easily.
Exactly. And you can go visit different places in Southeast Asia. I want to kind of chat about some of the things that were, some of the big changes, the handbrake turns in your career, which are quite interesting. So you were working in DBS and then you went back to do a master's, and then you were working again, and then you were applied for a PhD. How come that was the case?
Because I think I suffer from inferiority complex. Since young, I was very ignorant. I failed my English, and I didn't do well in many subjects, history, even mathematics at one point. So I think the way to compensate and overcome inferiority complex is to gain knowledge. And then PhD is like the highest form of education that you can have. So I applied to Princeton. So in year 2000, that was like 22 years ago, I applied, and then they sent me a letter. So I can see the Princeton letterhead. So I opened it. I was praying I will not see the word unfortunately. When I opened the letter, it was there staring back at me, unfortunately. So I said, dear Mr. Sim, we received your admission. Unfortunately, we cannot give you the admission at this point. We'll put you on waiting list. 22 years later, today, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another 22 years.
Yeah.
How do you think your life would be if you did it?
Then I think I will be a professor in the school.
Really?
Yeah, in some schools, and do research. Yeah.
And you wouldn't have gone down the path you have?
I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have stayed in the path, gone on the path of finance. You think you would have stayed in research?
It's difficult to tell because how I will be influenced, right?
Yeah.
If I study 4 to 5 years in the US in such a prestigious university. So that is difficult to say, like who I meet and what kind of influence by studying down there will have on me.
Did you have a lack of confidence when you were younger?
Yeah. I think until recently. Yes. Yeah.
Was it because of maybe like the people around you, even peers, or was it because you were trying to prove yourself to be better and better and better?
So when I was young, I think, elementary school, I was very seriously underweight. Then my
Looking
mother...
a lot bigger now.
My mother wants to encourage me to eat more. And then, she cooked some potato. She said, hey, eat this potato. Is it the kids in other country are carving animals out of potato? So next day I went on the school bus, and I told the boy next to me, hey, do you know that foreign kids are carving animals out of potato? He stand up, he laughed at me, and then he stand up, and then he told the whole bus laughed at me. So I knew at that point, all the knowledge that I have cannot be trusted. And then the person that I trust most is my mother, right? And so even that. So who else can I trust? So I'm always not confident of the information I have. So I always need to verify, learn. So at home, I have a folder this thick, about 3 inches, full of certificates. So inside there, I will have my CFA certificate. I will have my driving a sports car certificate. I'll have my sailing. I even have karaoke singing because I sang like a frog. I feel like I needed to sing better when I entertain my customers.
Yeah, so that kind of gives you the kind of backing that you're on the right path or you're following on the right journey, I suppose.
No, it's just that I feel better when I know more.
You know more.
Yeah, so I will try to learn from graphic design to positive psychology to to interior design.
Yeah. And that's the best way to be in, because then you're not just, Eric, who's in investment banking. You have so many different interests: interior design, you're building your own house or doing whatever, So it's kind of that complex of, I think it's just the fact that life is multifactorial and there's so much stuff changing continuously.
Yeah.
So you've kept up with that times.
A lot of people, they don't realize that by doing one job, you develop only a very small part of you.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
if you try many different jobs, you realize that you have much more talent, could be 3 times, 4 times, because you didn't develop, you didn't know. I didn't know my writing can attract so many followers because, I failed my English, I failed my literature. And 7 years ago, I started writing my first article, has got some good feedback. Then I wrote my second and third. And I compile my articles and make it into a book.
That's the thing as well, is that the compound interest you get from keeping up and developing something, that's one thing I do find my generation lacking a lot, is the consistency and the patience. We do want things really quickly from a career aspect and mainly from a side business perspective, because myself and Elise we have about 2 or 3 companies and they're all progressing nice and well.
Mm-hmm.
We always try to remind ourselves that it's a long-term play. We got to stick with it, commit to it. And I feel like, with your writing, for example, you could have given up at the time that it was just taking off. And that's the biggest fear. Of course, the converse to that is that you do something that maybe isn't the greatest long term. But I think there's a lot to be said for being consistent, for sticking with something and trying to go see where it goes.
Yeah, consistency can really bring you to 2 places and achieve something big. And because this is kind of a game, to stay in there for the long term and doing it day in, day out. So some people ask me, what's your secret to writing on LinkedIn and getting traction and followers? Consistency is one of the 3 C's. I write every Tuesday and Thursday, post Singapore time, 8 a.m. I've been doing this for the last 7 years. So whether I'm sick, whether I'm on my flight, even my father passed away, I was posting. I didn't post about his death. Nobody knew about it. I didn't want to get sympathy vote. I just post regular.
Yeah.
And posting also helped me get away from some of this stress.
Of course.
From some of this sadness from the passing of my father. So yeah, if you can post consistently, then you will be able to achieve that. And just now I mentioned that's one of the 3 C. The other 2 C, it will be content. I think content is still key. Then for me, I try to stick to career and life skill content. And then the 3rd C is community. So don't build followers, but build community, and the followers will come.
Yeah, I've seen that as well with yourself. 2.7 million followers later, that people love being a part of the journey that you're doing as well. And they're younger stages, even like myself, and they kind of see the similarities with it, which is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. So for people who comment regularly, so I try to invite them for my LinkedIn Live events, for my Clubhouse event when Clubhouse was very hot. And sometimes when I travel, I try to meet up with them. So when I go to London, this time around in Spain and even in Istanbul, I try to build that community with people who have contributed to my work.
Of course. I think a great point on that as well is those are people that helped you get to the stage where you're at, sold copies of your book, promoted your book. So it's great to see that you're actually giving back as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will go the opposite way. They'll think too big, I'm not responding to people anymore, and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah. Of course, my time is limited. I do what I can. Yeah. And if they are patient enough, I will definitely get to their city, or sometimes I will message them, or if sometimes they need help after following me for several years, if they need help, I try to help
You
them.
do your best, of course. You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
You were developing that interest, and it became like a side hustle, really, for you. But I suppose you didn't directly plan for that. Was there a point whereby you wanted to actually have like a side business outside of your role in investment banking?
Yeah. So teaching was my passion. So 2003. So year 2000, I didn't get my Princeton PhD application approved. 2003, I asked Citi HR to bring me along when they were doing when they are doing campus recruitment. So they did. I went. The professor liked my presentation. I was a VP then at Citi, and he said, "Hey, come back and give us a lecture, a proper lecture on financial engineering." I did. Liked it. He said, "Come back and teach EMBA." Then I went back to teach, and then when I went to Shanghai, he still wants me to teach. I said that you have to pay for my flights and hotel, and he said, "No problem, we'll pay." Yeah,
No
and
way.
so it became, that was like my first dollar,
Yeah.
my side gig first dollar.
How did it feel? How did it feel compared?
Yeah, it is very precious because now I'm making money outside of my main job.
Absolutely.
Number one, I need to get approval, right? So to go through the approval process. Number two, people are willing to pay me just my teaching, and then that developed, and I became adjunct associate professor
Awesome.
at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Then I was asked to teach 3 courses, and now I teach various universities. So in fact, just 3 weeks ago, I was teaching Oxford Masters in Financial Economics.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that though, because I even saw like your eyes like light up when you're kind of, you're turning it into like a kind of a business, and you're making kind of like a bit of side cash from it. And I'll never forget this. So I used to work with State Street in London. State Street was a great company, got some fantastic mentorship when I was there. But there was one guy called Neelan, and I remember we were sitting in an office together, and I was building an e-commerce company at the time. So it was vintage clothing, like 90s Adidas, Nike clothing. And I was building this on the side of my job. And I remember he said to me, I'll never forget this. He was like, "The money you make for yourself will mean more than anything you'll ever make for this company." And it's always just stuck in my head. I don't know why. I don't know why it is. And I still have my job, and I still love my job. But there's just something about creating it out of nothing, creating value, and giving something to someone that they really like, getting good feedback, and then getting paid for it.
Yes.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, when you realize that you don't need to rely on a company, but also I was also partly relying on my company. I get paid because I was working for a big financial institution.
Yeah.
So another test is when you finally leave that financial institution, would people continue to pay you?
Yeah.
And the key is let people pay you while you work for a big brand. So when you leave, you can still justify. A mistake that people make is, okay, I want to teach, I want to do this, let me retire first, let me quit my job, then I focus. By the time you leave your job, it is very difficult because you are competing with so many other people who now no longer works for a big financial institution, and they didn't have the experience. But for me, I was already doing the teaching, I was already paid when I was having that brand from my big,
Completely agree.
big employers. Yeah.
That's amazing though, because I think a lot of people do jump too soon, and they get a bit worried about it, or it's kind of like the money they made outside or the business they generate outside was based on their role, and then because that's being attached to their identity, it's more difficult to keep the train going.
Yes. So number one, be aware sometimes you get paid because you have a big brand behind. And then number two is the day the brand disappear, you need to use your personal relationship. So build that personal relationship before you leave.
Definitely. That's why I said to you about a podcast, but I know you're much further on. But the biggest thing that I love about this game is that these relationships, you know, like the people that I've met in Singapore so far are all people that I've met on the podcast circuit, and not necessarily hosts, just guys that are connected in fintech and finance. And people often say to me, you know, like, you know, how long does it take me to make money from a podcast? And I'm like, you should be thinking more in network, friendship, connections, relationships. That's worth more to you than anything else.
Yeah.
And everything else, just, it honestly takes care of itself. I will generally be honest with you saying that, is that, you know, if it's going to become a thing, it'll become a thing over a long time, no matter what.
Yes. And there are 3 capitals that you need to be successful: financial capital, human capital, and social capital. So financial capital is, you know, you need some money to buy the equipment, you know, to buy this mic, to rent this place, to go for a course, and then to travel, to widen your perspective. You need human capital, so you have some knowledge. You have knowledge about fintech. You have knowledge about how to produce a show like this. Then the last thing that's very important is your social capital. Because social capital is the goodwill that you have with people. And people going to come onto your show because they can see what kind of person you are. And if you one day want to do a startup, your first 50 to 100 customers are people who you know, and then you have helped in the past, you treat them with respect, and they will just buy from you. You know, you're not going to get the customer on the street not knowing you to be your first 50 customers. Social capital comes will come and help you. Like, for example, when I joined, so I told you how I joined this DBS Bank because of the bartender. Then I joined Citi because a colleague from DBS joined Citi. And then one day he called me. He said, "Hey, Eric, my boss is looking for somebody like you with your skill set. Would you like to join?" I said, "Citi, come on, one of the biggest international bank. Of course I'm keen." I went, 3 rounds of interview, I got the job. And 10 years later, a friend that I met in Citi, his name is Paul, and then he joined UBS. He said, then Paul called me one day, "Hey Eric, my boss is looking for somebody like you. Would you want to join UBS as MD?" I say, "UBS bulge bracket MD. Sign me up."
Yeah.
I went for 9 rounds of interview. I got the job.
What did you do for 9 rounds?
Yeah, because the MD, everybody needs to like you enough. Yeah. So I didn't apply because of advertisement. I didn't get the job because of my banking skills alone. It was because somebody was kind enough to tell me there was an opening, and they vouched for me, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
They put their neck on the line.
And that's huge, because that just shows how much of a good relationship you had with that person, or how much, you know, you're well respected, because he put himself on the line for that scenario. You know?
And he knows that, you know, if I get there, I'm not going to make him look bad.
Exactly, because you're there for 5 years or whatever, you know.
So sometimes the relationship you have with people is so important. I think people underestimate this. They think that, you know, to achieve financial freedom, you're always looking at money, but it is this relationship that gives you the opportunity to introduce you to another person, introduce you to a job, or there's a business gig. Hey, there's this teaching gig, training gig, which you want. This all adds up.
I love that. And I get so excited even hearing about that, because that's what it's all about. It's people, it's relationships, and then it's the benefit that comes from it, you know?
And also, you know, social capital will grow. It's like putting money in a bank.
Yeah.
You know, you buy somebody a coffee today, 10 years later, this person could be already CEO, right?
Exactly.
Imagine he just put in a good word for you.
Mm-hmm. It's invaluable. It is invaluable.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You spoke about relationships. How has your relationship with money changed over the years?
Money?
Yeah. Like, as you know, develop your career.
I think at one point, I was like influenced by the people around me, you know, when we get our bonuses, people will be buying watches, upgrading the house, down payment,
Buying
big
Ferraris.
holidays. Yeah. Singapore is too expensive for Ferraris, but a lot of people will go and buy Porsche. At one point, I was thinking, yeah, maybe that is the meaning of success. Yeah. But very quickly, I got out of that, and I didn't find the point of buying expensive watches because I don't even look at somebody's watch. So I assume that nobody will look at my watch to judge who I am. I mean, if you judge me based on my watch, then you are not a person worth me spending time with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then I don't spend that. And now, so that was for a short period of time, branded stuff. But now, no, I don't have many branded luxury goods item that I own.
And do you think that that's made you happier?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I feel like I no longer need that to elevate me. It's your clothes. If you need clothes to elevate you, that means internally you still not very secure. Yeah. Then for me, I think it's knowledge, how you treat other people, your perspective, and do you have something that people can benefit? Like for example, your advice. Your knowledge. I think that to me is much more valuable, and the impact you can create on people.
Yeah. And I see that as well with even how Institute of Life is designed. It's pretty much like how it's designed. And one point I want to pull out from there is the money, meaning, health, and happiness.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about like how that was even built, like how that concept was brought around?
Yeah, you need certain amount of money,
right,
to live comfortably, but not luxuriously. That doesn't mean you need to buy a big car. Then, of course, we want some form of happiness, but it's also not purely to chase happiness. Chasing happiness makes you unhappy.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you will be happy sometime, you will be unhappy sometime. Unhappiness cannot be cancelled by happiness. If you're unhappy, you just be unhappy. So even you have $1 billion, if you fall down, broke your arm, you still be unhappy, right? Somebody spill coffee on you, on your brand new suit, you'll still be unhappy even though you're sitting in the first class. Yeah. Then I thought to really have a fulfilled life, then you need to have meaning.
What's that for you? The teaching element, of course, but as you were developing your career, what was your meaning and purpose?
I think now is really seeing people who benefited from my content on social media, my book. The content pretty much similar always,
of course,
about career and life. If somebody writes to me to say, hey, because of your book, I did this.
Yeah.
That was very fulfilling for me. And I do get that every week. Somebody will say, I come into this bookstore, I didn't know you. I saw this orange book. It was like, at the display. The bookstore treated me very well. They put it very prominently. So then they said, I bought it. I read like half the book and I feel the impulse to let you know I bought your book. So that itself is very fulfilling. And some people, there was a man, 59 years old. He said that because of your book, I have a change in career. Thank you.
Yeah, because maybe it could be just historically where people were reluctant to change careers. And I even find so I'm 26. A lot of people that are in their 30s are with careers for quite long. And to me, I could be wrong in saying this, it seems that people hang on too long to things that they don't enjoy because they have the security. Maybe they've had children, maybe their circumstances have changed. But it's good to see like books like yours, getting to the root of why you're doing things and then making adjustments as a result. That's, to me, is much more important. Like I don't necessarily like look down on someone for moving job because they're rapidly trying to improve their situation.
For me, is everybody's circumstances is different.
Of course.
Some people, doing the same job for 20 years is also fine because maybe job is not your priority and when you have got a family to take care of, maybe somebody with special need and then you cannot move around, you cannot take late meetings, Then, so I always understand there is a reason behind, and there are people who job hop every year because they didn't find meaning in their job, and that is also fine. So everyone is different. But for me is I just hope that my content help people improve their situation, whether you're working 20 years in the same job or whether you have been changing job every few years. Yeah. If my content, my book can help a person even change their mindset. So there was this French follower, Eduardo. He was at a loss because he was working from home. And he was like running his kind of, although he works for a company, but he feels like he's running his own show, not meeting people. Then he read my article, which says that be your own CEO. Like for me, I see myself not as a bank's employee.
Yeah.
I see my bank, my employer, as my client. I am the CEO of Eric Sim Consulting Company. I get not salary, but a consulting fee. Mm-hmm. And I give my service. So this is the mentality that I have, and I'll buy my own chair. I sometimes if need to, I'll fly at my own expense to meet customers if the bank doesn't approve.
It's a mindset shift for sure. It's focusing on what you really want from a career and whatnot. It's cool you said about that interest, that example, because that guy reached out because he felt, he was not happy in that kind of current role. Has that been a big important part to your career, like mentorship and finding the right mentor and continuously working with people?
Yeah, I don't have like a mentor, and I think there is no need to go to somebody. Can you be my mentor? I think there's no need. If you have a problem, then you find somebody who can give you the advice. Mm-hmm. And it can be problem-based, right? If this is, you got some problem with social media, then you find somebody who's good in social media. If you got problem with your life planning, your relationship, whether to get married, to have children, then you find somebody with that experience, maybe much older. So different problem, you go to different people. It can be coaching, it can be mentorship, could be advice. I think there's no need to fix it to say, oh, I have a mentor-mentee relationship with this person. Yeah. And for me, I also don't want to be mentor to people, but if they come and ask me a question that I can answer quickly, I try to help them.
Yeah. There is a bit of an overemphasis on getting a mentor and being mentored, I think. I've had a lot of great influences in my career, and even looking at posts like yourself have been very helpful to zoom out, just get my head out of the weeds, get my head out of building software, building podcasts and recording stuff, just focus on some bigger picture stuff. And then I've delved deeper into some other even guests I've had in my podcast discussions with them, and they've been guiding principles and they've put me in the right direction. And what I love the best is like being in the gym 6 months from now and thinking back to something that we were discussing. That to me is very like meaningful, because we can we learn things through podcasts, through posts and whatnot. And that's what I get the most out of people that might listen to my show, is that they'll say, I loved this part about what Eric said. This part is what stood to me. And you'll never even hear that. He'll just have benefit of that in the future, That's why I ask you to do your own podcast, man.
That's cool. I currently, I'm occupied with a few projects, so I don't have the time. But I have been on many podcasts. Mm-hmm. So my followers must be sick of me listening to me on these various podcasts already. Yeah.
What would you advise someone who's wanting to get online and build a personal brand?
To build a personal brand, I think number one is to try to find your own uniqueness.
Okay.
Yeah, and because a brand they have a niche, right? So number one, your target audience. Do you want to target students? right? Like for me, I can target students. I can target a senior professional who wants to develop a portfolio career. I can target people who wants to be promoted to MD or people who want to get into banking finance. So which one of these do you want to be? You're offering. Are you in a position to offer something? So that can be your brand. And sometimes it's also not so clear at the beginning. You just
100%.
You just have to take a small step and see what response you get.
Yeah.
So for example, if I write, if most of my followers want to follow me because they want to do investment banking, maybe that's where I should position myself and then start writing about M&A, IPO transaction, right? Or if I get people who say, hey, I like the way you dress, then maybe I should go along that line. But I know that if I go along that line, I just need to do 2 posts. So 1 post on white shirt, 1 post on blue suit, and that's the end.
Another post on no shirt on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for personal branding is really not so much of how you want other people to see you, but it's how you want to see yourself. And
That's
it's going to be a journey.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I see there, or the biggest issue people have, is the fear of what other people are going to say. The fear that their friend group from school are going to look at them differently, and then they're reluctant to go and make those changes. It's like a small town mindset, and it's very difficult to detach and break away from that. And I found that a lot of people will want to make changes, but they're happier to sit and suffer in silence than to go and make those changes. And building a personal brand is the perfect example.
Yeah, I think building personal brand, you will get positive comments, you might get negative. So when I post and I tell story, then there was a friend of mine who's a CEO. You behave as if you are selling this snake oil.
Snake oil.
Yeah.
Chinese snake oil.
Yeah. And because, there's a story. But I say, there's nothing I want to sell,
Yeah.
And even if you don't buy my book, it's okay. And even if you buy the book, I don't get a lot of money. The bulk of the money goes to the bookstore and the publisher. But after about 6 months, he already got used to me selling snake oil, and so many people like whatever snake oil that I'm selling. Now he wants to join me. He said, hey, can you bring me for your teaching? How do you write this article? Then he start following and start writing like mine. So sometimes it's also to stick to what you believe in, as long as your intention is pure.
Of course.
Right? If you genuinely wants to give content that is useful, then even people say, oh, you're trying too hard, or you are not real. They may change their mind, but you just need to persist on.
That comes from a place of insecurity as well, though, when people are talking down on what you're doing. And I heard something really interesting recently. It's like, nobody criticizes someone who's working not as hard as them. So people will always criticize someone who's working more, and they're like, oh, what's he doing that for? Why is Eric always posting?
Yeah.
You could take an MD at UBS, an MD at Goldman, and one guy will say, oh, well, he's doing all this other stuff, and he's talking down that. But for you, you're just writing your articles Tuesday and Thursday or whatever day they come out, and you're getting on with it, And you made a great point about that other person that said that, because this other guy, Max Passion, who's been on my show before, he had a great post. And it was like, when you start posting on LinkedIn, the first month or 2 months, people are saying, what's Eric doing? It's ridiculous. Month 3, 4, and 5, they're thinking, when is Eric going to give up? Month 5 and 6, they're thinking, oh, Eric's getting a bit of traction. People are liking what he's doing. Month 7, 8, and 9, people are like, oh, you're doing some other stuff. You're getting invites places. And after 12 months, people are asking you, how many sales are you making? Or how can they do it themselves?
Yeah.
And that happens in all different walks of life. If you wanted to start training in the gym, if you wanted to start running triathlons or whatever.
So I would say enjoy the journey. Like posting on social media, you will have up and down. Sometimes you have more engagement, sometimes you have less, because you tried different. I will try LinkedIn Live. I will try Clubhouse. Now got LinkedIn Audio. I will try articles, videos. Then some got more traction, some very little. But you keep trying, and that is also the fun of it. Yeah, to learn what works. And this is how I can also teach people that, hey, don't try this. I tried it, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that is true. Like Clubhouse, don't jump on Clubhouse right now.
Yeah.
As the platform's like building.
Yeah.
I want to finish up at this point. Where can people find your book? Where can people find all your courses and everything?
Yeah. My book is on Amazon. It's called Small Actions, Leading Your Career to Big Success. And my content is largely on my LinkedIn. They can just go to LinkedIn, search for Eric Sim. If they cannot find that, there are Eric Sim Institute of Life. If you Google me, Eric Sim UBS, Eric Sim CFA, Eric Sim Institute of Life, one of them will be me. And usually I wear the same thing all the time. So if you see somebody, Eric, blue suit, white shirt, likely to be me.
Eric, like I said, thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
really
Darren.
Let's do many more sessions in the future, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Man.
Thanks for having me.